It's Saturday night. You've arrived ready to meet your band of merry men and venture off on another epic quest in the infamous game of Dungeons and Dragons. You spent hours hammering out stats and carefully crafting your character's backstory, making him fun and ready to join swords with the party. And then everyone begins introducing their characters. Maybe an elven ranger who lived amongst the trees, a human paladin who's afraid of bumblebees, a half-orc barbarian murder hobo, and your super charismatic bard who sings doodly-doo ding-dong doodly-doodly-doo. And then it happens. The fifth player arrives, his pungent odor of fermented BO and Cheeto dust overpowering the room, fedora topping his head of greasy hair, and an anime body pillow firmly tucked under one arm. His character begins play sitting alone in the darkest corner of the tavern, dressed in all black, littered with assorted straps and belts, the fringe of his hair covering one eye, the shadow of his raised hood covering his face. His first meeting with the party is probably going to kill one of them, and before unleashing his epic attack, of course, unsheathes his druided twin katanas that can totally cut through anything, especially the audible groans of the dungeon master. And after the commotion dies down and the sacred katanas have been properly sheathed, he finally reveals his half-demon ancestry, and how he became known as the Black Swordsman after personally slaying 100 knights all on his own. Oh, and he has an evil older brother who killed his entire family and now needs to take revenge against. Basically bits and pieces from every anime bad boy you've ever seen. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the legendary Edgelord. This character type is usually everything cool and dark, a broody bad boy dripping with angst and armed with a tragic backstory. This isn't your grandpa's D&D. But why exactly? Why does it work in anime and not in a game of D&D? Are edgelord characters just a lost cause? Well, no. Judging by the stories I've heard, ranging from the personal to the most nightmarish tales of horror, it isn't really the edge of the character that cuts its credibility. It's often the attitude of the player, a specific trait specifically called main character syndrome. That is, a player who believes themselves to be the main character in a game that relies on some level of teamwork. And this isn't to mean a player who simply takes a leadership role, but one who must also be the best fighter, say all the best lines, and do all the coolest things. And unfortunately, this often comes at the cost of the game and their fellow players, whether it be talking over others to make sure their character is the one who acts first, or taking drastic action to look super cool but actually puts the whole party in jeopardy, or even outright cheating so his rolls are consistently high enough to automatically succeed at whatever he's doing. Can't have our edgy boy humiliating himself with a fumble now, can we? And just as often, other players succeeding is a huge negative. It's not enough for Edgy Boy to succeed. No other character is allowed to outshine his own, as if the Edgelord is the main character, and his fellow players are mere underlings there to aid in his personal power fantasy. But it isn't that Edgelords won't work. Rather, an Edgelord must be done right, and unfortunately, it's one often done terribly wrong. There's a reason why the hidden hand behind the working models like Guts or Goblin Slayer or Sasuke is often the hand of a seasoned and experienced professional writer. As much as these characters are often associated with immaturity, the Edgelord actually takes a measured sense of maturity to pull off correctly. And let's face it, we're not going to stop these players from creating these characters, but we might as well explore what it takes to create a good one. And not just a good one, but one that can work within a group. Let's start with the biggest misconception, which is, oddly enough, their entire portrayal. Badly done edgelords are often rather aimless in their edge. There's no real set goal other than doing more edgy things, and everything else they do is more for the sake of looking cool than anything else. And even worse, their players often make them less like living, breathing people and more like mindless drones. They'll either be emotionless husks, or boiling avatars of rage, or just plain jerks. Probably because that's what a lot of these anime edgelords tend to be like, at least on the surface. Let's look at one of the most prime examples of edgelord kind, Guts from Berserk. Berserk opens with who we'll call Black Swordsman Guts, being the edgiest boy who's ever edged. Super cool black armor and cloak, fake mechanical arm with a gun, giant sword, and seemingly no care in the world other than killing demons. No concern for innocent lives, and he doesn't really go out of his way to help anyone. There is only his path of revenge in anyone who gets in his way. He even smiles sadistically as he tears enemies to pieces, laughs at the horrors he sees, and doesn't seem to take serious matters seriously. All in all, very classic edgelord behavior. In fact, fact, all of this might feel familiar to those who've encountered tabletop edgelords in the wild. So what's the deal? Isn't this just an edgelord? What makes Black Swordsman Guts any different? Well, despite his edgy exterior, by the end of the Slug Baron arc, we finally see him break. His inner sorrow breaks through the hardened shell of a man standing on the abyss. Because the truth is, Guts the Black Swordsman isn't real. It's a persona, a shell. Or more to the point, Guts' edgy boy persona is a result of both his misery and his madness. And we know this because Guts isn't an edgelord by nature, and he's barely one by choice. It's just the attitude he adapts in order to struggle through his ordeal. But more importantly, contrary to what some might believe, Guts isn't an emotionless husk, or a simple rage-fueled monster. In fact, we can contrast Black Swordsman Guts with Captain Guts, the man he was before, where he served as captain in the infamous Band of the Hawk. While no saint, he wasn't nearly the edgy boy he would later become. He had comrades, position, responsibility, eventual love with Casca, and a strong admiration for Griffith, leader of the Band of the Hawk. Captain Guts is his true face. Sure, he's still a hardy warrior who had plenty to learn about teamwork and camaraderie. At his core, he's still a man, one who desires love and companionship and a home, and all of which he found serving under Griffith. Captain Guts is the man who cares for his men, who would protect Casca against an overwhelming force simply because she needed protection, and a man who would do anything for a friend. Quite literally. It's only through betrayal, loss, and extreme hardship that his Black Swordsman persona emerged. And no surprise, one might also find themselves a bit withdrawn from humanity if your best friend betrayed you, violated the love of your life in front of you, killed all your friends, and every night you must fight endless waves of evil spirits until sunrise. In other words, that coveted edgy boy personality we see so often isn't a rational state of mind. But what does that mean exactly? And more importantly, how could we make this shine through in a D&D session? The answer just might be a lot simpler than you think. A common misconception is that the cool character cares about nothing, or they've given up their humanity for some quest of vengeance. In reality, the opposite is true. It's not that the edgy character should be heartless. It may seem that way because he may care for very little, but the truth is that he does care for a select few things very passionately. As much as Guts hates Griffith, he loves Casca and loved the home he used to have, the home he had with the Band of the Hawk. Hatred and rage are fueled by something after all, and that something is love. Let's come back to Guts in a bit and switch perspectives to some Western edgelords. Number one on that list is probably Batman. Outside of the Snyderverse, he's not typically as bad as Guts could be, but he's still often portrayed as stoic and nearly emotionless. He uses fear and manipulation to fight crime and is far more violent than most of his colleagues. However, Bruce Wayne started his crusade against crime to honor his parents after their gruesome murder. Bruce might lose himself in the fight sometimes, but he still cares for those close to him. And if the animated series is anything to go by, he even cares for his worst enemies, wanting them to be helped and treated humanely. Though, even in the animated series, it's hinted that Bruce Wayne went mad the night his parents died, and the edgy persona, i.e. Batman, became the armor he wears to weather the horrors of Gotham. Yet, underneath is still the compassionate Bruce Wayne who wants to better the world. Or what about the Punisher, who's a lot more extreme with his methods than Batman is? This is a guy who became so obsessed with war, he made a deal to some unknown entity to wage one forever in exchange for his family, though he didn't know his family would be the price at the time, which made things worse. In fact, when the entity hinted that his family would be the price, Frank Castle was horrified. Why? Because he loves his family. And like Batman and Guts, the edgy persona he's known for became the armor he wears to protect himself from the cruelty he endured. Yet even Frank Castle, who's more far gone than Bruce Wayne, has a strict ethical code. Murder might be his number one tool in his arsenal, but he still refuses to kill innocent life under any circumstance. Two of my favorite anime edgelords are Hiei from Yu Yu Hakusho, who's so edgy, but he's probably considered the evil one of the group. However, he still loves his sister Yukina, and would do anything to protect her. And Hajime Saito from Rurouni Kenshin, who's probably the most efficient and ruthless opponent Kenshin faces. But even Saito cares for his country and the men who serve under him. And even he has a personal code: to slay evil immediately. A code that essentially makes him immune from corruption. In the end, the thing to keep in mind for an edgy boy is not the quest for revenge or even the people being revenged against, but the reason the character wants revenge to begin with, the reason they act. And this same reason is why we even see Guts, the hardened edgy black swordsman, cry after the Slug Baron arc. There are things he once loved and still loves passionately, many of which are no longer there. But his passion still burns hot, nevertheless. Even if your character has taken up that edgy boy personality, it should be treated more like an armor hiding a far more complete and complex man. In essence, a valiant lord of edge might seem emotionless or devoid of morality. He may use brutal or downright villainous methods to get his way, he might lie or cheat or even steal, and he might give little care to those around him, innocent or not. But there is something he does care about quite a bit. So much so that even the empathy and common affection a normal person has for everyday things and everyday people has been switched to the one or few things the edgelord does care for. And just like Guts, Batman, and even the Punisher, there will still be glimpses of the true man beneath that cold exterior. A man who, even in his most nihilistic state, would save a child from falling to her death, or comfort a grieving villain, or take the time to help a lost little girl find her father. None of them may enjoy working with others, but they will if they must. Even the legendary assassin Agent 47, who has been engineered as an emotionless living killing tool, still cares for and will assist allies like Diana and Father Vittorio at heavy personal cost. And for clarity, assertions like he cares for revenge, or he cares about becoming the strongest, or he cares about nothing but battle don't count. Why does your edgelord want revenge? Why does he want to become the strongest? Why is he so obsessed with battle? Answer these questions and you're one major step closer to discovering the human element required for a proper edgelord. In summary, edgelords have gained such a terrible reputation that its mere mention is often cause for groans and eye rolls, to the point some might think they're just not viable characters. But their dark personas and mysterious personalities are, as often, too alluring for some to ignore. Simply put, you can't stop the edgelords. The truth is, their terrible reputation is due to such characters being done wrong more commonly than done right. And they can be done right. But the secret isn't apathy. It's actually giving the characters something they do care about with all of their hearts. It's remembering that their emotionless exterior shouldn't be their true selves, but the armor they must wear to endure the hardships of their lives. And above all else, whatever else may happen, deep beneath their callous shell and at the core of their hearts, they never stop being human.